In a quiet Texas courtroom, a man once lost to addiction and homelessness stood to face justice. His record was clear, but his past wasn't. What unfolded next wasn't just a sentence, it was a test of whether redemption can truly outweigh the mistakes of a lifetime. His attorney waived the formal reading of the indictment, and the state confirmed it was proceeding on the charge as presented: robbery, enhanced by a prior conviction. The judge turned her attention back to the defendant. You understand that if the state proves the enhancement, your punishment range will be between 5 and 99 years, or life in prison, and up to a $10,000 fine. Yes, ma'am. Her tone stayed even, not sympathetic, not harsh, just deliberate. She reminded him that if the court chose not to follow the plea agreement, he would have the right to withdraw his plea. The defendant listened closely, nodding slightly. You also understand that by entering this plea agreement, you are giving up certain rights. Your right to a jury trial, your right to confront witnesses, and your right to remain silent. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am. Do you intend to give up those rights and enter your plea? Yes, ma'am. The court noted his acknowledgement and turned to the defense attorney. Counsel, has your client been able to provide you with any defenses? Yes, Your Honor. Do you believe he has a rational as well as factual understanding of the charges against him? I do. Do you believe he's currently competent and was legally sane at the time of the offense? Yes, Your Honor. The judge looked back to the defendant. Has anyone threatened you, coerced you, or placed you in fear to get you to enter this plea? No, ma'am. Has anyone promised you anything other than what's stated in the plea agreement? No, ma'am. Are you satisfied with the way you've been represented? Yes. The judge nodded once, writing notes. Are you a U.S. citizen? Yes, ma'am. With that, the formalities of the plea were nearly complete. The court found the defendant had knowingly and voluntarily waived his right to a jury trial. The prosecutor summarized the plea terms. According to the agreement, punishment would be assessed at 6 years in prison with a $2,000 fine. However, the state recommended that the sentence be suspended and replaced with 6 years of community supervision, probation, under specific conditions, a treatment and evaluation plan, 200 hours of community service, restitution, and no contact with 3 individuals related to the original incident. The judge turned to the defendant again. Did you understand those recommendations, and that the court does not have to follow them? Yes, ma'am. Then to the offense. How do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest? No contest. And to the enhancement allegation, true or not true? True. The prosecutor formally introduced Exhibit 1, case files and attachments, to support the plea. The defense raised no objection. The judge verified that the defendant had reviewed the stipulation of testimony with his attorney and understood that by signing it, he was consenting to the use of written witness statements and police reports in place of live testimony. He confirmed that he understood. The court accepted the exhibit and entered the plea. After reviewing the state's evidence, the judge found sufficient grounds to find the defendant guilty and the enhancement true based on his own admission and the supporting documentation. It was time for sentencing. The judge asked, "Are both parties ready to proceed?" The defense attorney stood. "Yes, Your Honor. Before sentencing, I'd like to present a folder containing letters of support. I also have 2 individuals who wish to address the court." The judge agreed. "You may proceed." The defense attorney spoke first, his tone deliberate but compassionate. He explained that he had been moved, not just by his client's progress, but by the support that surrounded him. Your Honor, my client was once homeless, struggling to survive. Today, he stands as a volunteer and a role model in his community. 6 people have come here today to support him, some waiting all morning to share how he has changed. He paused before continuing. These letters and witnesses speak to his transformation. He's been helping others who face the same challenges he once did. This man is a success story, Your Honor. The judge nodded for the first witness to approach. A community worker took the stand. She introduced herself and began speaking softly but clearly. She explained how she had known the defendant for several years through her organization, which served people experiencing homelessness. She described his journey, how he had once lived under a bridge, leading a small group of others who had nowhere else to go. When he decided to change, she said it was entirely on his own initiative. He came to her one day and said, "I need to go to detox. I need treatment." She told him to return the next day if he was serious, and he did. He completed detox, entered treatment, and graduated successfully. Then, without prompting, he continued into outpatient recovery and began attending support meetings across the city. Eventually, he started leading some of them himself. She went on to explain that the defendant had since become a mentor to others on the streets, showing them that change was possible. He trained police cadets on how to interact with the homeless population, volunteered at outreach centers, and reconnected with his family after years of estrangement. As she spoke, her voice trembled slightly. He's not just helping people out there. He helps us too, the workers who deal with death and despair every day. He's a reminder that people can recover. He truly is a success story, and we're proud of him. The judge thanked her and invited the next person forward. The second witness, another outreach director, introduced herself and explained that she had also been through homelessness and addiction in the past. She described the defendant's transformation as something real and consistent. He doesn't just talk about recovery, she said. He lives it. She spoke of how the defendant participated in training programs for law enforcement, sharing his story with new cadets to help them understand the humanity of those living on the streets. She recalled watching him receive his sobriety chips at support meetings and seeing the light in his eyes each time. Her voice broke for a moment. We need that light. We need examples that prove recovery and second chances are possible. And he is living proof of that. Court was silent when she finished. The judge thanked her and turned back to the attorneys. Before continuing, the judge addressed a practical concern. He's likely to be released from the county jail around 1 in the morning. Will someone be available to pick him up? Several people in the audience immediately nodded. Yes, Your Honor, they said. The judge acknowledged their presence. I appreciate the fact that you're here. It's not often that a person in this position has such visible support. And I appreciate that you, the defendant, turned yourself in after learning about the warrant. Many would have tried to avoid it. That says something. She paused for a moment, then continued. The testimony given reminds me of the people I see at drug court graduations. Those who have worked to change their lives. I commend that. But remember this. Next time, don't confront anyone. Call the police. The courtroom was still as she reviewed her notes. The defense attorney made one final request. Your Honor, whatever consideration you can give based on those comments, we'd appreciate. The judge nodded. Here's what the court will do. She spoke slowly and clearly, ensuring every word was recorded properly. The court finds the defendant guilty, as previously stated, and the enhancement true. However, the court will sentence the defendant to 6 years in prison, suspended and probated for 3 years. There will be a $2,000 fine, which will also be probated. The defendant will perform 200 hours of community service and pay restitution. She paused. The community work he's already doing may count toward those hours once verified. The defendant was ordered to reside at a transitional housing program upon release and to maintain regular reporting with probation officers, either in person or via video. He would continue with his current treatment plan, including regular support meetings and sobriety maintenance. The judge added a condition: proof of employment or SSI income within 60 days. When the defense noted that the defendant was receiving disability benefits and volunteering, the judge agreed to accept that documentation. No employment as a home health provider or with minors, she added. After confirming there were no further requests, the judge presented the final document, the trial court certification of the defendant's right to appeal. He confirmed that he had reviewed and understood it. Because I followed the plea bargain agreement, and because you waived your right to appeal, you do not have permission to appeal this conviction, the judge said. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am. She reminded him that as a convicted felon, he could not own or possess weapons or ammunition, and if he had any questions about what that meant, he should consult an attorney. With that, the hearing was nearly over. The judge looked up one final time. I'm glad you've changed your life, she said simply. Thank you, the defendant replied. Before adjourning, the judge invited everyone who had come to support him to stand together for a moment. They gathered near the bench, community workers, friends, and colleagues who had seen his transformation firsthand. For a brief moment, the tension in the courtroom lifted. The defendant stood quietly, surrounded by those who had helped him rebuild his life. As the proceedings came to a close, the record ended there, but the story did not. Outside the courtroom, the small group waited together, making plans for his release and return to the Transitional Housing Center. The hearing had marked not only the legal conclusion of a case, but also a turning point, a formal acknowledgement of a person's effort to change. The file would soon be archived, another case number in a long list. But for those who had watched this journey unfold, it was more than that. It was a reminder that even in the rigid structure of the justice system, moments of redemption could still find their place. And as the defendant left the courtroom that day, his future uncertain but open, it was clear that this was not the story of a criminal being punished. It was the story of a man who had finally learned how to rebuild.